Everybody, hello and welcome back to another weekend of work with the Five Guys on Live. Tonight, we have a little bit of feedback. Everybody mute, please. Tonight, we are joined by two special guest hosts who are going to share with us through a series of really heavy topics. It's a pretty big week in the news world. For those watching, let us know who you are, where you are in the comments. First and foremost, we are joined by the one and the only Outspoken man, Nigel Ashford. Nigel, how are you, my friend? Welcome to Five Guys on Live.
Thank you. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. I'm excited. This is the biggest hosting group I think I've been a part of. I think Brian said right before we got on, like, this is 5 men. Like, so this is pretty cool, especially for 5 Black educated men to come together to speak on these topics and really just to give our value and our opinions.
You know what, we do this every Monday right here on these platforms, whether it's a Five Guys on Live YouTube, the 3+1 Media YouTube, or on Facebook Live. Those are the places that you can catch us, and they can catch you, Nigel, right here also on Outspoken, which is a Facebook Live show as well, correct?
Yes. So we're getting ready to start Outspoken back in March. We're also starting to expand the series a little bit more. We're doing things like confessions, where I am going on at least once a day to talk about deep things with motivational speaking. I'm starting to also do more Instagram live stuff, where we're going to have 3 to 4 hosts come on starting next week to talk about series of topics such as my occupation and the way I earn money doesn't define my faith with God. To also talk about life after divorce as gay men, moving on, and what does that look like, and getting that mental health and emotional health care for yourself. And we're also getting ready to start this new project. It's going to be later in April, called By LGBTQ. So we're going to bring on like a bunch of LGBTQ entrepreneurs who have products, and it's going to be a combination of QVC style and what Keke Palmer did with Buy Black. We're going to pick a location, and we're going to try to get people to buy these items of these LGBTQ entrepreneurs on Live. Live has this new program where you can actually click the button of the item and it just goes into your Instacart without getting off the live. So we have a couple of projects coming up, and I also have my LGBTQ children's book coming out in June. It's going to be the first LGBTQ children's book that incorporates parents of all LGBTQ individuals in the stories. So we're really, really excited. So we're moving, we're shaking, we're trying to make things happen. So yeah, that's what we have going on.
Now, that's a big deal. We're going to have to talk more and do a deeper dive, especially in the fact that you're curating a virtual marketplace for LGBTQIA plus entrepreneurs to sell their resources. That is a transformative move. Kudos to you. I can't wait to learn more about it, as well as see your creative endeavors continue to come forth. So thank you. For everybody watching, we know that Facebook Live and YouTube Live are not necessarily monetized platforms, but we're going to have an after show on Instagram Live that is monetized. And all badge proceeds will go to the Outspoken, as well as to our second guest co-host, the one and the only mentally divine. Brian, how are you doing, my brother? I cannot say your last name. I'm not about to F it up for the whole live world to see.
No, listen, I saw it coming. Yeah, Brian Pirapakara. I also go by Brian MED. So shout out to everybody. Yes, Pirapakara. So shout out to everybody who's watching. I host the Mentally Divine podcast. I also host the Mentally Divine morning show. Yes. That's my YouTube page.
And so our viewers can go right now to the Mentally Divine podcast on YouTube, and they can subscribe right now.
And actually, it started on Twitter. We used to do it on Twitter Spaces. And so it was audio only, and we now have moved it to audio and visual. And that is broadcasting and streaming on my Patreon, patreon.com/mentallyDivine. And you will see it there. But this is great. And I think I really just want to make this point. I think it's very important, because I think we was talking about it a little bit before. And I think the aspirations for the Five Guys on Live was kind of mirroring the same paralleling the same kind of vision that I have for the Mentally Divine podcast, where it's shout out beer gang, a day, all day, a day. So now look at this. So just quickly, I want to say about the Mentally Divine podcast, it started off with us uplifting, empowering, encouraging, and motivating the voices of Black, Afro-Latinx, LGBTQIA voices, right? Because oftentimes you look at social media, you look at reality television, you look at the Zeus network, shout out Zeus, no shade. But I'm just saying, everybody always wants to talk about how everybody want to fight for a man, and we just want to bag, and we want this and we want that. No, we have substantive things to say about informed topics and discussions, and it's very important that we bring that. So shout out to y'all for doing this show, bringing them to live every Monday 9:00,
Every
and
Monday,
Tuesdays on
9
IG
o'clock.
Live.
This is the 62nd episode. We have been doing this 62 weeks, 62 times. We take very brief breaks around the Christmas holidays, but for the most part, we are here pushing for finding 5 guys to make it happen, and hitting some pretty hard topics, guys. I'm glad. So we, if your friends aren't watching, tell them to log on, because we really do have a powerful, packed show. Our viewers, you can also go to Mentally Divine on Twitter or Mentally Divine on Instagram, and you can also subscribe and support his work on his Patreon. Again, proceeds from tonight's after show are going to go to both of our guests to help support their platforms as they build those platforms out. You got $50 a month. You can get a full. Look, let me tell you something. See, Brian was talking about this beard game. Let me blow him up.
Zachary, I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
I was like, we need to clap for
Look at
Brian's
that.
beard game.
So Annette, you said beard game. Look at Brian. Look at it, right? That's like a silky press beard of beards, right? And let me tell you what you get for $50 a month. You're gonna get a one-on-one live session with this man on his Patreon. Brian, I ain't got no $50, but I am going to subscribe at the next tier, because I do believe in supporting my brothers and fellow entrepreneurs, especially around positive platforms. So I'm all in, and I'm going to be there. And Annette said, "Who, child?" Well, not only in that are you saying woo child, but so too it seems as though the one and only Vladimir Putin is also saying woo child, as he seems as though he has bitten off a little bit more than he can possibly chew at what he thought he would be a quick and easy win in Ukraine. Gentlemen, we all have seen, and everyone has been absolutely captivated by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Some people are calling it like the, Ukrainian crisis. I think that is a flawed messaging approach. It's not a Ukrainian crisis. Ukraine did nothing to deserve the crisis. They're not in crisis because of their actions, but it truly is the Russian invasion. Gentlemen, what are your initial thoughts on the Russian invasion, with specific emphasis on what should America do?
All right, I'll guess I go first. So I think it's very important that a lot of people know and the brief history of what's going on, because this didn't just happen overnight. First and foremost, we have to start with 1991. We have to understand that the USSR started in 1922, okay, and it went all the way to 1991 when it broke apart. So the Soviet Union actually fell in 1991. In 1991, there was a referendum in Ukraine where 92.3% of the population voted for it to become a sovereign country. That's first and foremost. Okay, so it became a sovereign country, independent. They doing their thing. We got to move on. Let's fast forward to 2004, where we had the Orange Revolution. You have 2 key players. You have Viktor Yushchenko, which was Western, oriented, but pro-EU, European Union. And then you also had Viktor Yanukovych, which was pro-Russian, right? And so in that time, there was some backdoor kind of low-key, low-ball dealings where there was an election and Viktor Yanukovych actually won, but everybody thought that it was very fraudulent because they thought the Russians had something to play into that, right? So this was called the 2004 Orange Revolution. As a matter of fact, you had Yushchenko, which was poisoned, right? And mysteriously poisoned. And we know that the Russians have a very, very strong record of poisoning their dissidents, right? And if you don't believe me, for the people that are watching, go ahead and look up Alexander Litvenko and look up Alexander Navalny in 2020. All right. So from there, we move on to 2008, where you have Russian opposing NATO. See, this is the key underlying issue. Russia does not want Ukraine to join NATO, because if they join NATO, then they're going to be aligned with the West, and the West is going to have United States, Britain. The West is going to have a lot of key influence in that area of the world where Russia does not want that. Okay, so you actually have President Putin, or Vladimir Putin, at that time saying to George Bush, you are not going to do this because they're actually not even a nation state. So they can't do it. And at the time, they actually couldn't do it because a lot of people think, oh, well, this country's going to join NATO just overnight. You can't do that. You need something called a map. That's called a membership action plan that actually needs to be discussed in long-term talks with all 28 members of the NATO. So you got to come through and you got to bring your facts, because if you're not bringing the facts, you don't really know what's going on. Russia does not want Ukraine to join NATO, and he's afraid of democracy reaching Russia. And so he invaded because of these things and a lot more other things.
I think, 100%. Those are all the facts. But on the other end, and just being a devil's advocate to counterbalance, there, wasn't Ukraine given that option, just like Estonia, just like Latvia, just like other Soviet Union nations, to join in the 90s, but they declined. And so there are a whole group of people out there who say because they chose not to enter into NATO when they were given the initial opportunity, they do not deserve the right to be rushed in now. Now, I'm not saying that, I'm just giving that counterbalance. And I want to again know, gentlemen, what are your other thoughts around this specific topic? Like, what do you think?
I'm just still stunned at how Putin and his fellow leaders and, the Kremlin and just all the propaganda that's happening, they keep saying that this is a peaceful attempt, like we're coming in peace. And clearly the visuals are showing the complete opposite of what peace is. And so in my mind, I'm like, when did killing over 300 Ukrainian civilians, innocent civilians, become peaceful? When did utilizing your military tanks to run over civilian cars that are trying to escape the Ukraine become peaceful? When did invasion become peaceful? Like, let me know. I just don't understand how they are continuing to run with this narrative. And I know you asked about what do you think the state should do. I'm sort of I'm sort of looking to see what the United Nations are going to do, because when you look back into World War II, into like other, people that may have committed leaders that may have committed genocide and African nations and stuff like that. How do you hold leaders such as a Putin accountable? Like, what does that look like? What are those ramifications and consequences outside of sanctions? We can do sanctions all day. The ruble is less than 1 cent now, all the things. However, in terms of international criminal court, how do you hold these leaders accountable? What are the true consequences and ramifications that they should face? And I also applied the ICC, the International Criminal Court. They are actually opening up a probe today. They put it out on investigating war crimes that Russia and Belarus have committed against the Ukraine, because this is so much larger than, apparently what the media is presenting to us or what have you. So one thing about the United Nations, they did a Security Council meeting today, and the Ukrainian ambassador and the Russian ambassador went back and forth. It was like a ping pong moment. But the Ukrainian ambassador said something that was so pivotal to the Russian guy that he actually had to end the session. He said, what did he say? He said, there is no purgatory for war criminals, ambassador. They go straight to hell. Drop the mic right
so
there.
do insurrectionists. Yeah,
exactly. I'm just looking to see what the United Nations would do. How do we hold Putin accountable? So on and so forth. And really quickly, I do have to, and I know we're going to talk about, how our African brothers and sisters have been affected in this time. So it sort of gives me mixed emotions, because at the end of the day, you don't want anybody innocent to die. I mean, let's just, that's a thing. Call a thing a thing. And I do have to shout out the President Zelensky, because he is letting his balls hang, and he ain't no bitch, and he's standing up to the whole situation. So shout out to him. And they're even showing photographs of Miss Ukraine, who competed in Miss Universe, on the front lines, the vice president's wife on the front lines, so I really commend the people of Ukraine. They, creating their own gas bombs and gasoline bombs and, doing whatever they got to do to fend off their own country, to fend for their own country. So I think that's an amazing sign of courage. And that's my thoughts about it thus far.
It's a great, and welcome, Darius. We're glad that you're with us right on the eve of your 25th birthday. I see that you have your champagne there to toast, yourself and your years. You're 1 year older than me. I can't wait until I have that same birthday.
I don't lie about my age. I'll be 29.
I couldn't hit mute fast enough on you. So it all got out. So, I think you make a really good point, Vince. And just for a brief correction, because I don't want anybody blaming Cardi B named Bella Calaris, it's Belarus. But you're right. The two countries together are absolutely in an attempt to and have done numerous damage to Ukraine. I want to go back and just very briefly, we love you, Deborah. It has been a minute. We're glad to be back. Want to go back up and address Annette was like, why can't they join? They didn't want to join. They didn't want to join because a number of people in Ukraine really did not trust the West. Think about it, for the majority of these people's lives, there has been a lot of dissension and negativity portrayed to them and pushed to them as propaganda about how horrible the West is, and specifically the United States. So that's why a lot of them didn't want to join. They wanted to go their own route, their own way. The same thing happened with Georgia. But don't forget, I think it's Sweden, gentlemen, or Denmark. One of those nations is also not a member of NATO. And now they're wanting to be a member because they are afraid of what Russia will do if Russia manages to succeed in Ukraine. Deborah said clearly, we do not rush in to help African countries and other countries when it's genocide. We need to mind our own business in this case too. I personally am not happy. I don't like that social media stuff, with the president, everybody not talking about, I want to sleep with Zelensky and Zelensky's my man and he's my hero. Because I think that it is desensitizing the realities of what the people are really facing. And I think I'm really worried about how people are not really thinking about what it really means to be at war. And that, like when you really think about, you have a house today that's gone tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Not only do you have a house today that's gone tomorrow, but you have a career. You have a way of making a living. You have access to money in the bank. You have access to food and fuel. Within 24 hours, the people of Ukraine lost all of that. And now they're refugees begging for access in the countries. And luckily and thankfully, they're getting that access because, to their border NATO nations. But the reality is they're not citizens of that country. And they're not going to have the rights of those citizens, and their lives have been forever disrupted. And I just think that social media is really making light of a horrible situation. Even though I know that people need like comedic relief, I think it's too much.
You say they're making light just because of the comments that they're saying about the president? Is what you're...
The whole social media campaign to me seems to trivialize the war.
Interesting. No, I definitely agree with everyone, with what everyone has said. I struggle a little bit. I definitely empathize with the citizens of Ukraine, especially I was just thinking about if this martial law had come into effect here in America, hell, most of us will be on the front lines having to fight. And that's a scary thing for me, I know. But then also understanding that there are people in Russia who are also protesting this. And so let's not forget that there are people who are not behind Putin, who is just been a dictator pretty much. And they are protesting, and they are feeling the effects also of these sanctions that are coming down from various countries. I hear they had to close the stock market today there in Russia, as well as other exports that they're trying to do is not helping. So I definitely think we need to think about both sides. And does America have a role in this? Shoot, because I don't think we should jump in and fight everybody's war, but I think we definitely should be there as a support and an ally. So
I'm actually glad what Biden is doing and not putting boots on the ground. Let me just say that. I just want to go on record saying that because I think we just came out of a war. We just brought our troops back from Afghanistan. Yeah. And we spent $300 million a day, $1 billion a week. You're telling me we about to go back? No. And by the way, a lot of people don't understand the implications of economic sanctions that happen. A lot of people don't understand that the oligarchs in Russia are so tied up into the banks and the corruption within the country in terms of the economic policies that when we actually remove them from SWIFT, I mean, you have these big European Union countries. You have America who is backing them being removed from SWIFT. A lot of people don't know what SWIFT is, but for the people watching, y'all have your computers, y'all can do some Google searching on SWIFT. So the economic sanctions do bring implications that are very negative. And by the way, people were saying, oh, well, if you weren't expecting that to deter them 100% completely, then why do it in the first place? You can have 90% of thought that somebody's going to do something in a likelihood. You can also then impose sanctions and their chances go down to 60%. You've deterred them, but it's not that it's not going to not happen, right? So we have to come up with, we really have to do the necessary research for us to really indulge in this conversation. Because if not, please stay your ass off the conversation.
Now, that's not going to happen.
And that's
because people gonna jump in no matter what, especially when they're being motivated and encouraged by things, by fake news media that's funded by Russian oligarchs, like the Shade Room and Media Takeout. I'm so glad you said that, Brian, because I'm literally making a TikTok as soon as we conclude tonight's live cast, where I am going to send a shout out to our brother, the one and only, the Black History Month smasher, Joseph R. Biden. Not only did he find a way to make history with the topic that we have coming up, but he announced to the world that this was going to happen, and he was right. He made a calculated risk that took a whole lot of, as Vince said, balls when you talk about Zelensky. So too did Joe Biden. No, Joe Biden put out sensitive American international intelligence to say that this is what Putin's going to do. That means that people inside of the Kremlin, people who are at the table making these decisions, who leaked it to the American officials, were put in jeopardy and at risk. But Biden felt it was important enough to share with the world, and that allowed Americans to get out of that country in a way that they could not do with Afghanistan. Yep, President Biden messed up Afghanistan. The withdrawal did not go well, in my opinion, but he definitely had a redeeming home run with this. And that brings us to the question of, and we're going to go to you, Derek. I know you had a comment on it before. I just want to cue up the next topic. Why do we have African and Caribbean students not able to leave Ukraine? But before we go into that, Darius.
Oh, no. I was agreeing that when people are educated, they shouldn't make comments. And so that's why I'm listening and learning.
Zach, to go off of the topic, I just really want to say I think it was ridiculous when the media released the reason why they're withholding African students or African people, African Americans who are visiting due to the fact they're doing women and children first. They're also then doing the elderly, and then they're doing Ukrainian citizens. But these are students who are paying their money, coming to your country, coming to your institutions, investing into their education, and also trying to get really, really good jobs. But once a crisis hit, they're looked at as secondary citizens due to their skin color. I thought it was crazy that they say they won't let Blacks without European passports cross the border, and they won't let Africans in as well. And then they interviewed some of the guards, and the guards said, we're just going off of our Polish counterparts of what they're telling us to do. And Poland authorities are coming back and saying, oh, no, we're not doing that. We're not saying that they're not allowed. We are accepting people who don't have visas. We are accepting people who have identity cards and passports, even if they're expired. We're accepting them. So Ukraine, don't put that on us. And now we have our Nigerian government advising their citizens in the Ukraine to now go to either Hungary or Romania, and that should not even just avoid Poland altogether. And it's crazy that we're still seeing racism and discrimination at this time of 2022. And everyone keeps thinking, I think even with our generational Zs, people are feeling like, okay, we're changing. We're seeing in the media, we're seeing interracial dating. We're seeing more Black gay couples. We're seeing all these type of things of changing, but there is still discrimination in people's hearts when certain things arise. And we really need to see this for ourselves.
You make some great points. I'm gonna say this. You ain't seeing too much Black gay nothing over there in Ukraine now. Like I want to go on the record and say in full admission, there is a white nationalist crisis in Ukraine. There are a lot of exceptionally racist people in Ukraine. Hands down, absolutely. Those people who were holding and stopping the students from entering the train were racist, and they are deplorable and should be ashamed. However, I don't think that's a reason to withhold support from the Ukrainian government. This is just a different take on it, Nigel. Why are they still there? That was my issue, and that's my real concern. Like, why are you still there? Because the countries failed to get them out. Nigeria, don't come now talking about what you're going to do for your students. I mean, I'm glad you're doing that now because guess what? We want them out of there. But you should have done that when President Joseph R. Biden said this was going to happen. That was your time to be proactive like every other country in the world was being proactive. The same thing goes for the Caribbean students that are over there. But not only can I place the blame on the countries for not getting them out, I place blame on those same countries and the embassies in Poland. They have a Nigerian embassy in Poland. The people who work at the Nigerian embassy should have been right there on the border, ready to receive their people and ensure smooth communication back and forth. They should have found a way to get on social media and make sure those students knew what to do to get out of Ukraine. But again, they should have gotten out of and evacuated Ukraine when the first call went out. Because me, I'm gonna tell you something. If my black butt is anywhere in this world other than Georgia or Mississippi, and something is going on, period, I don't care if it's a wildfire in California, I'm getting out right away because I know what they're going to do to the black people.
And Zachary, you know what I think they did? I honestly think they assumed. They assumed that the Ukrainians were going to take care of their students and treat them like equal citizens. And you know the whole saying that they say, when you assume, it makes an ass out of you and an ass out of me. And now you have your Nigerians and African students trapped, unable to get out, and also now being persecuted for their skin color. And what are they going to do now? Either go to Romania or go to another neighboring country.
Yeah, really quickly, I'll add that Ghana and South Africa, they sent their ambassadors to the border immediately to get their students out. So it wasn't even like, I know the Nigerian president is doing all this tweeting back and forth and making, collect calls, trying to see what's going on. Ghana and South Africa said, no, we physically go over there, get our civilians and come on back to the home team or whatever the case is. And I do agree with Nigel. And, I really don't want to project what I would do in times of like crisis. Like I know me myself, I definitely wouldn't even put myself in that situation. If Russia already had the crazy, I would have came home 3 months ago. But I will say there's this lady at my church. Before we go out on the stage to sing, we always do a little prayer, whatever. And we was praying over the Ukraine situation. And then we asked, anybody got anything on her heart? And she was like, yo, my daughter is in Ukraine. She's a white woman. And apparently the daughter, like Nigel said, maybe it was just an assumption. Maybe we thought we was going to be safe. Maybe, our escape plan was just assumed that there was an escape plan. And now that everything hit the ceiling, we looking like she's stuck in the basement of her boyfriend's mother's house, who she just met. And they running out of food and water. And the boyfriend and his brother now fighting in the war.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a real time situation. And the mama can only talk to her daughter via Instagram. So it's real out there, but at the same time, it's like you want to be empathetic, but then you sort of want to be like, where's the accountability? Where's the contingency plan? Where was the smartness? Like, were we thinking? So yeah, I get what you're saying.
Or did they care? You have to also think about that too.
You had a whole entire set of people in Ukraine who were continuously saying that this wasn't going to happen. Mm-hmm. President Biden came out and said it was going to happen. Republicans were going back saying, we don't know if we can trust the intelligence. They were hoping with everything that they had in this country that President Biden was giving faulty information, was being wrong. And President Biden took a risk. The Russians could have heard President Biden's speech about get out of Ukraine and then turned around and not take an action to make him look like an idiot, which would have been to benefit of his well-placed American pawns, like who they are. And it didn't go that way. So these students, and many people, and there are Americans trapped there as well, because literally they thought this wasn't going to happen. Oh, Russia's always doing this. Russia's always dropping little bombs. Russia's always doing things for attention. And this time it was real. And we have to learn to trust the intelligence. And again, be rather safe than sorry.
And Germany got it wrong too, by the way. Their intel was wrong too. There was a lot of countries that got this wrong, and you are absolutely right. Biden definitely called this right. Biden has the experience. He's been in the committees, the necessary committees. He's been around this long enough to understand the trends and understand to listen to not only the historians but also the experts in the material. So he got it right.
And yeah, this is from, again, we have a mutual friend. This is a coworker, a peer of mine, a colleague. I thought Elena was Russian. I'm going to email her tomorrow and see whatever I can do, because now it does become somewhat more of a personal situation for me. And again, this is exactly what I think the majority of Ukrainians thought, that it just wasn't going to happen. And then when it does happen, when you think about it, everybody's trying to mass flee at one time. I've experienced, and so have you too, Zach Thomas, I don't know if anyone else has, we've experienced, hurricane evacuations in Mississippi, where we have seen people leave the Gulf Coast of Mississippi and leave New Orleans to come upstate. And the roads are backed up for hours. You're going 10 miles or less per hour trying to get out. And then when you talk about, this is just my own opinion. Let me tell you something. The six of us, right, we are right here to go on the train. I'm going to do all I can to get me and my family on that train. I love y'all. God bless the brothers. But I got to take care of me, Lucius. I got to take care of me. So I'm sorry. It's sad what's happened to the students, but I'm telling you, the people in Ukraine don't care about that.
But
everybody's trying to take care of their children and their wives so they can go out there and put on them vests and fight Vladimir Putin.
And Zach, even the Ukrainian officials, they were saying, we probably didn't let them on because they were jumping over the lines and trying to get over the trains, and we had to hold them back. And those were some of the assumptions that they were making as the reasons why these students were trying to get on these trains. And they were and people, I'm pretty sure it wasn't only Black people jumping in front of others trying to get on this train.
Well, there were also, it said, students from India, students from America, students from everywhere trying to, clamoring. It's just the fact that the video went viral because of the racist Ukrainians, and that helped and spurred it to be viral. Yeah, Vince. I'm
just curious, post this situation, what would the conversations and relationships be like with the African nations and Ukraine and all of that? Like, I'm really curious. I would love to be a fly on the wall. And then, zoom me in, Skype me in, please. I want to know, because it's like you really revealed your true colors right here in real time.
And I just wanted to chime in because I saw this quote today from one of a diversity colleague that said, if you're upset at folks pointing out concerning reports on racism in Ukraine against African migrants and characterize it as a distraction from the real issues, you're implying that the empathy extended only to Ukrainians who look white. And that pretty much kind of sums it up. Like, are we only empathizing with Ukrainians who look white? Definitely we need to help them out. But then we also have some neighboring people who are there, and we need to look at how can we get them out as well. We can't place blame and say, oh, the coulda, shoulda, wouldas, but stuff is happening now. And so we still got to do some work.
They got some non-white looking Ukrainians up over there?
I don't know. They might.
I ain't seen none. I have not seen an indigenous Ukrainian that didn't look white. That's why I'm asking, what was in the tweet?
Say what now?
What was in the tweet? I know here, in America, we are a melting pot. Ukraine, not so much of a melt.
The world is a melting pot.
Popsicle over there.
The world is a melting pot.
Zach, I think they did the paper bag test when they were trying to get on the train.
They wouldn't have to worry about. I would have been in the paper bag 2 weeks ago. That's all we gotta say. And but again, we talked about the fact that Joe Biden did right. Okay, he did the right thing. He didn't only do the right thing with Ukraine and the Russian invasion, but he also did the right thing right here with our sister, the one and the only Ketanji Jackson. Now, I was told that Judge Jackson never uses brown in her name. I don't know if that's true, but I think I saw that somewhere. I read that. I don't know. But Ketanji Brown Jackson, Judge Brown Jackson, definitely not Joe Jackson. We are very thankful that we finally have a diverse representation on the Supreme Court of a Black woman who has an ideological perspective. This is my opinion, an ideological perspective more in line with the majority of Black people when compared to that other man who looks like her that's on the Supreme Court. I think, Darius, he may be your uncle, from Georgia. He is from Georgia. He's a native. Uncle Thomas.
Let me say that. Darius, go ahead.
Clarence Thomas, Darius.
Let me say this. I think what I appreciate about her is that anybody who's in the legal profession understands how to use their words the proper way. And when she was at that hearing, she said, they asked her, do you think being black, do you think that's going to impact her? So she said, that's not going to be the full thing, but I would hope that it actually. And she also then said, what I really loved, our politics may differ, but my praise, but it bears. So wait. First of all, I want to say this. Paul Ryan, who's a Republican, also endorsed her, by the way, from Wisconsin. And he said, but it bears repeating just how qualified she is. Our politics may differ, but my praise for Ketanji's intellect, but her character and her integrity is unequivocal. So that's first and foremost. But I really appreciated that Ketanji said that, I have a certain lived experience that informs my practice. And she didn't really say it, but what she really gave us was a nudge, nudge, wink, wink, and said, I'm blackity black, and we gonna do what we gonna do. I mean, that's what I'm just saying. She just said it in such a way that was so clear and concise to me. But I mean, people had to read between the lines.
Now, I'm gonna point to the elephant in the room.
Right. I was gonna say, what's that butt? Because
there is clearly not an elephant, right? She's a frog. So I'm going to point out that elephant in the room. And I know what Deborah is referring to, because a number of black people in these United States of America are pointing to the fact that she ain't blackity black. Annette said eloquently blackity black, but that she's not herself. And this is what it means, that because Judge Brown, Judge Jackson has a white husband. And she is falling in love with a white husband. But here's the thing, and I'm not saying.
So you think the same about Kamala?
Yes,
they do. They use that exact same argument against my shero, Kamala Harris. But let me point this out and say this about that argument, right? Look at Ketanji, right? When you look at this woman is unapologetically black, regardless of who she falls in love with or who she's chosen to live her life with. In addition to that, you have to look at her parents. Her parents were militants in the 60s and the 70s. They were fighting for civil rights. This woman was raised by these revolutionary black parents. So regardless of how and sometimes your life takes a turn to be in opposition to your beliefs of your parents, but the reality is those teachings are still there. This is what would have concerned me if President Biden would have nominated that judge from South Carolina who is black and I think maybe married to a black man that was being supported by Tim Scott and Senator Ladybug. That right there would have concerned me, because that right there would have been a clear sign that she is a South Carolina plant, or, just like Uncle Clarence, a coon, being put on the Supreme Court, another situation where you have a black person in name or look only. I don't think that's the case for Judge Jackson. I do believe that she is going to legislate and push things forward in a way that will make our country better for black and brown people.
And Zach, going off of what you said, we also have to look at the statistics of black women. Statistics have shown that the most black women are educated, the less likely they'll be able to find a partner or a spouse, especially that of a person who is African American. Her education, her accolades have went against her when trying to find somebody she loves. So we can't even look at that. And for other black women to get on her for that, they really need to check themselves and check their statistics. Also, this woman has ruled over 550 cases. She has been shown equal right, have ruled over a lot of civil rights cases. And she also served as the clerkship under Justice Breyer. So I feel like this has been pre-planned and destined for her to take over this mantle. And just going back to what you said, whoever she's with, that should not dictate that. We should be celebrating and supporting this woman. Her Brown Jackson, this is black as the last name can get. And we just need to just celebrate and support that she's in the position that she's in.
And you're right, Deborah. There were 3 other highly qualified black women, but I think 2 of them were married to white men. So that would have also played into another one. But and the other one, I think, was the South Carolina, plant. Yeah. But here's the thing. This woman has 2 degrees from Harvard. She clerked for Supreme Court justice, the one that she is going to replace. She would be the only former public defender on the court. Listen to this. Again, those other candidates didn't have that qualification, and that qualification is massive. We are living at a time when the focus on reforming our criminal justice system is needed. She did not prosecute Black men. She tried to defend and liberate Black men who were falsely accused. That is a qualification that I don't think anybody else could bring to the table. And that was one of the reasons why I think that we had people like Mitt Romney opposed her for her judgeship when he said voted for her no the first time. That's what I believe, but I don't know.
But I do see what the other side that some people are saying as we're talking through this. Solely because you just made mention of, oh, she has 2 degrees from Harvard. Would it even matter had she got a degree from Howard Law School? So why are we kind of looking at prestige and honor sometimes based off of who you married to, as well as what schools you go to, and see if you're not too Black enough for us? And so it can be watered down sometimes and make people feel like, oh, are you truly about the culture?
Well, let me tell you this, because you Black people are going to completely erase the whole concept of putting a Black person in a position of power to benefit the Black community because of what you're doing, right? Kamala Harris.
What we're doing. What do you mean because of what we're doing?
Kamala Harris is an HBCU graduate, an HBCU graduate who is a member of a Divine Nine organization, sits in the second highest powerful position in the United States of America. Yet and still, Black people want to say she's not Black enough. Then you have Judge Jackson here, who is sitting here with her braids in her hair.
So that makes you Black?
Having given her law career to be a public defender, and now she's turning around, and because she's made a white man,
so dreads dictate your Black.
It's impossible to please you Black people.
Thank you.
Black issues. It's impossible. So I feel as though someone like Joseph Biden should dismiss you all
just because we have an opinion. It's hard to please us. We all have an opinion.
It's impossible. It's impossible to please you. Because no matter what he does, you're going to say it's not Black enough, unless it's you or someone you know. The only way to make you happy is it has to be you or someone you know. No matter what President Biden does for Black people, if it's not directly impacting you, you can't see it. He still ain't done enough for Black people because my life is no way different or better. Well, I don't agree. My life is better under Joseph R. Biden. And I love Jamaicans too. I love Jamaicans too. I had some oxtails on Sunday.
I thought that America was going to have a Supreme Court justice named Keisha.
Shut up.
Only better choice that it could have been. If Mayor Keisha Lance was on the Supreme Court, it's only 2 people that would have made me happier. President Barack Hussein Obama or Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. That would have been. I
was like, okay, that's why she said.
Well, don't say Bottoms or Tops, and most certainly, whatever you do, don't say gay. This brand new law was passed in Florida that outlaws educators from saying gay and mandates that educators tell parents if they know a child is identifying as a member of the LGBTQIA plus community. Gentlemen, this bill has advanced, will be signed by Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida. What do you think about this and what it means for America as a whole?
Zach, I think it's, go ahead.
Go ahead, Nigel, go ahead.
I think it's ridiculous. I think I've seen it firsthand. I went to a private Catholic school for 12 years, and one of the contracts they had a sign that you are not a homosexual, and if identified as a homosexual or LGBTQ, you or administration will be kicked out. So we did have students who was found out outside of school that they were gay. We had administration who was found out outside of school that they were gay, and when it came back to administration, they were fired and kicked out of that school on the spot just for what they like. And this is even not just the LGBTQ issue. They're also doing it with things of slavery within our school books. They're trying to take out things that are making certain races feel uncomfortable of what their past ancestors did, so everybody else can feel. So even though it really did happen, I think we should be moving forward and finding out how can we incorporate the real things of history, the real things that happened in our history and what's going on now into our school books, so our future generations have an overall outlook of what's going on. Let's not just feed them what we think they should know. Let's not hide what they think they should know. I mean, I think that's just totally crazy. I mean, no one is saying anything with the Holocaust. Everybody was like, the Nazis are bad. This is what happened. 1/3 of the Jewish population was killed. They are not afraid to say that. But when it comes to gays, LGBTQ, people of color, we try to hide and cover it up because now it's talking about them. We're making them equivalent to those of the Nazis who were bad. And they don't want that image. So I think we really should, and I try to fight this bill as hard as possible, but also we just want our people just to show all of the truth. And we're not condemning people now. We just want people to become more educated and less ignorant, and also educate our future generations.
Right. I agree. I think, and also they're doing the same. That's exactly right. They're doing the same thing with critical race theory, which, by the way, no one even knows what critical race theory is, and that it originated from law school, and that it actually, progressed into being something else to actually critique the power structures of and the systemic oppression that we face. But I think the biggest part is this, and I think Joy Ann Reid made a great point in her show when she asked the person who was talking about it. She said, "So now people can't talk about their families because what if the person is not gay themselves?" They have two parents that are same sex. Now they can't speak about that. You know that they had their projects when, you talk about the genealogical tree and you have to put that all out there and you got to say, also now you can't even be a part of that. So,
and Brian, what about the parents that come to the schools? Like, how do you address my gay dads? Like right.
I mean, and by the way, this is the other thing with everything that's happening in the news right now. It's a heavy news cycle. Right. So some things like this fly under the radar. And so that's why they're able to do things like this, because everybody has their eyes on Ukraine and Russia. Everybody has their eyes on, deservedly so, Ketanji Brown Jackson's nomination, deservedly so. But what we're saying is that it's important to continue to shed light on these issues and continue to fight, because if not, this shit is about to go way left. I mean, the education system has already failed us. Let's be straight up. They teach us from Martin Luther King Jr. to Barack Obama, and we good. You don't listen to anything about the Tulsa Race Massacre. You don't listen. I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna end this. So I can move it to somebody else. My grandmother is still alive. She's 101 years old. She was born in 1921. Okay, Harriet Tubman died in 1913. So if you think that lineage and that mentality and that logic has died, your ass is naive.
Yeah,
that's all I gotta say.
I did want to add real quick, Nigel. In Tennessee, they actually did pass a law or some type of legislation to ban the book Mouse.
They're trying to do it in Tennessee, they're trying to do it in Alabama. Condoleezza Rice was on The View, and she was talking about it, and she was just saying, it's crazy. She was like, I just don't want people. We're trying to pass this law because we just don't want white Caucasian kids to feel like they're being attacked for the things that people in the past did.
Kinda.
See, that is, I think, a part of the issue that I'm having. Like, you know what? Okay, yeah, we don't want folk to feel uncomfortable, but at the end of the day, in the 1800s and the 1900s, ain't nobody tell your ancestors to behave the way they behave.
You're right.
That is not our problem. Ain't nobody tell them the 1883 German conference when Germany wanted to go ahead and start delegating against Africa and start slavery. And ain't nobody tell Hitler to, exterminate 6 million Jews and including, gay people and all this stuff. Ain't nobody tell y'all ancestors to do that. And because this is historical facts, it has transcended and continued through time. And we always say history repeats itself. Now you want to erase it because your ancestors did something. That ain't our issue. If you don't want to be held accountable by your ancestors' actions, then from what happened way back when to now, it is now your chance, your opportunity to break that cycle and do things differently, not erase it. Because had we erased what happened in the Holocaust era in World War II, we would not have even been able to equate what's going on in Ukraine and Russia right now. Because Putin moving the same way that Hitler was moving, low-key. Breaking contracts and stuff like that. I mean, let's call a thing a thing.
Low-key, Donald Trump is moving the same way that Putin taught him
Exactly. So this
Okay.
white guilt thing, I get it, blah 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 blah. But it's real. It's facts. Like we just can't negate that. It is what it is. And another thing, really quickly, I had to get that off my chest. So the Trevor Project reported that 42% of LGBTQ youth seriously considered suicide last year.
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, this is just my position on it. If you are a lawmaker and are initiating and supporting legislation that could place children in harm's way, and you are content with that, I feel in the event that a child unfortunately does commit suicide based off of the law that you place, you need to be held off of voluntary manslaughter and or assisted suicide because that is your fault.
And Vince, this is one of 266 anti-LGBTQ laws.
And one thing that's interesting in recent Gallup polls, they found that 7.1% of U.S. individual adults are identified on the actual LGBT trend. And so like that's up since 2017 when it was like 4.5.
Yeah.
And,
So-
and 52% of people who are classified as Generation Z identify as a member of the LGBTQIA plus spectrum. And that's why this is happening, because the tide is turning. And the Democratic Party is a big tent party. The Republican Party is not. So if you identify and you feel comfortable identifying as LGBTQIA plus, even though Ladybug has been ladybugging for a long time, and is still a Republican, people are, they're afraid of how they're going to lose power and they're going to become absolutely obsolete. So the answer is to force people back into a closet. It's to force people into absolute submission around their individual identity. All of that is happening. But what's most concerning to me, and here's the reality, what are we going to do about it? That's what I want to talk about now, even if we don't get to talk about any of the other topics. It's not too late in Florida to stop this bill. It advanced tonight. 5 hours ago, this bill advanced for a final vote. It's going to pass in Florida. It's going to be given to Ron DeSantis. But what are we going to do? This is what I want to see us do. I want to see us do a full court press against Disney, against everything associated with Disney. Disney is the #1 economic driver in the state of Florida. I want to see people boycott the state of Florida. I want you to boycott Miami. I want you to boycott Disney, and I want you to demand through a full court social media and email press that Disney take action and demand that this bill be shot down and not signed into law. It's not too late. We failed in Georgia to put the appropriate amount of hype around the voter suppression bill before Brian Kemp in the midnight hour could sign that bill. He got it at 5 p.m. He signed it at 10 p.m. We thought we had time. We now know what how fast they're going to move. Right now, before it even makes it to DeSantis' desk, is the time to demand that Disney take action. And if Disney is unwilling to take action, then we need to boycott fully. Every single person who identifies as LGBTQIA plus or has a family member or friend who is LGBTQ plus needs to be involved in this push.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned Disney.
Burns down along with the governor's mansion of Florida if this bill is passed.
Not Diagon Alley. No, it's funny that you mentioned Disney because I know that I don't want to say headway, but maybe in the past 4, 5, 6 years they have introduced gay characters in their films, and the Disney Channel. I know one of their shows has like 2 moms or something like that. So for Disney to be embracing this and placing it on their mainstream platforms, one would think that they should, come out and, have some type of influence or power in these decisions. Just like, when we had that issue with Kemp and Delta and Home Depot and all the people, what was it around the MLB, the All-Star game, whatever was supposed to happen?
The voter suppression bill.
Yeah, the photo and those companies pulled out and that shut stuff down. Like, I think Disney should follow in suit. Possibly.
But Vince, they're not going to do that. They're not going to get involved with politics, but they are going to make profit off of you. They're going to make your shows on their channels. They also hosted the They also hosted pride events at Disney, at Disney World as well. And and LGBTQ organizations rented out Magic Mountain. I think it was 2018 or 2017. So they're going to take your money. They're gonna make money off of the shows, but when it comes to politics, they're gonna stay their asses out of it.
Unless we demand that they do different. And that's what I'm saying. We have to make them take action. We have to make them withhold their money. And we have to also hold accountable these funders of Republican politicians in Florida. These are the big funders. AT&T, Charter Cable Communication, United Healthcare, Publix, Anheuser-Busch. We have to find a way to publicly shame these companies through the Powers Act, Thomas, of cancel culture. Because that is the only power that we have at our disposal to push change for the communities that we are members of.
And we also have the power to vote these idiots that's in office out.
It seems like we have that power, Zach, but you really don't have that power when you have in Florida and in Georgia and in a number of other Republican-led states, you have voter suppression bills that have passed that are going to significantly impact people's chances to vote. Here is evidence. In the state of Texas, where Governor Greg Abbott literally has criminalized the fact of a child being trans and a parent giving support around this trans child's identity, that state has just rejected 30% of all absentee ballots. Rejected them. People voted and they said these votes are invalid. And now those people, if they want to vote a second time, have to find a way to prove their residency. Some of them don't even know that their votes have been kicked out. That is what Republicans are doing in these states. So you're moving into a situation exactly like what you have in Russia, where you can't even trust the elections because of the people that we put in power. And this is our fault. Don't get me wrong. We put Donald Trump in power with the help of Russians, but at the end of the day, the American people voted. Same thing goes for Abbott, DeSantis, and Brian Kemp. And now we're suffering through it. We have to find a way to win in this moment so that we can win in this moment. And it's going to be a lot harder to do than what many people think. You can't just vote and it's going to solve the problem. Not this time.
And I think that's a really good point to now take the time to tell people, go out and vote, because it's very important that we increase our majority in the Senate. Because let's be honest, the real reason why the two bills which were combined, the Freedom to Vote bill and the John Lewis Freedom to Vote bill, I forget which one is called, Advancement Act, whichever one is called, they combined those both bills, and it has so many different key points that will enable. And I mean, just things like automatic registrations for people. That would have 50 million new voters into the system automatically. It makes it so that when you get your driver's license, you would automatically be registered to vote. It makes it so that it pre-registers people who are 18 to vote. And people are like, oh, well, they can't even vote. That's fine. They can't vote. But they've actually now, based on the statistical data, have actually surpassed the baby boomer generation in terms of the population and the numbers of the people who are voting. So yeah, it's very important. That's why the Republicans don't want that to get passed. And it's very important that we get a more wide majority and margin in the Senate so that we can move forward.
Brian, it ain't gonna happen.
You don't think it's gonna happen?
It's not gonna happen. Let me tell you why it's not gonna happen. Because number one, you have a loser sitting in the seat of the DNC chairperson in Jamie Harrison, who ain't never won nothing, and he doesn't know how to strategize. Number one, but number two, the Democratic Party is not doing the work they need to do to become winners. And that makes me very angry. I'm so angry. I'm so angry at the lack of strategy on the part of the DNC and the Democratic Party. And I know what's going to happen in November. I know what's going to happen. It's going to take a miracle.
Well, Pelosi came out and said they don't support defund the police the other day.
Well, you know what though? That's
30 months later.
Well, but that's not going. Let me just say this. I have a little bit of faith. And the reason why I have a little bit of faith is because of Georgia. And Georgia flipped blue for the first time since the 1980s. And it's a ruby red state. And I've been saying it. I called it correctly when I said that it was, well, actually, I called it correct that Biden was going to win. But what came to a surprise was the fact that Georgia flipped blue. Mm-hmm. And the fact is, everybody was automatically putting that into the red bin.
Not me. I called Georgia blue too.
The fact that it turned blue and it was ruby red, and you see Atlanta, and you see Fulton County, and you see DeKalb County, and you see Decatur. I mean, everybody was coming out. I feel like it can happen.
Brian, we're going to keep warning out. Come out a second time, and again, think about. Let me go back to what I said when I said you can't make these people happy,
and they're going to get comfortable.
About what have you done for me? Living in Georgia and talking to Black people in Georgia, it's going to take a miracle. Stacey Abrams, the most prolific and present Black Democrat in the United States of America, who is not in the White House currently, and that will be Kamala Harris, is on the darn ballot. I am telling you, I fear for her chances of winning this election. I don't believe that Stacey Abrams is going to be able to get the Black vote out in this state. And you guys can write it down that I said at 10:01 on the last day of February, the day that the eve of Darius's big day.
Dan, we overtime, but why? I disagree with that.
Brian, talk to some people in Georgia. Talk to some people that may not have that MED behind their names to understand what I'm saying. Like, I'm talking to people in this state. We literally just went through a municipal election that was the lowest voter turnout in a citywide election in decades. Yeah. And I watched every progressive candidate go down in a pile of ash. You had all this excitement. We're finna do some real stuff. We're finna do some different things with the policing. We're finna turn this city around. Every single one of them lost.
It was more than 50,000 votes. And you got over, 2 million people in Atlanta?
Say it again, Nigel. So, Brian, don't think that we're going to have a repeat of 2020 and 2022.
Well, no, yeah.
Not here.
Because it's not a presidential election. But I will say this.
COVID.
I will say this. Let me just say this. I think it's very important that we continue to use our platforms to get to people, to tell them exactly what this administration is doing and what the Democrats are doing, because there's a lot of misinformation that's being peddled. And I think you're absolutely correct. And just because, the MED or whatever, the degrees and stuff, there's a lot of people who don't understand and are fully uneducated about what they're really doing and what they're really accomplishing. So it's very important that we continue talking about it.
I had an argument
and also being distracted, because we also have social media. We have these music videos. We have all these celebrities. We rather focus on Kim and Kanye than focus
Nicki
on
Minaj. You better focus on Nicki Minaj.
Don't get cussed out tonight, Zach.
It's your birthday, so I'm not going to say anything further. I forgot. But the conversation continues on IG Live, where everyone's watching. I need you to go to IG Live, this activist, so you can make a donation and buy a badge just to support the work that we're giving to Nigel and to Brian. Before we, you know what, we're gonna put Darius in the mix too, because I'm gonna match whatever we raise. Like, if we raise 100, I'm gonna match it. So I'm doing a 3-way match, because again, it's Darius' birthday, and we're gonna be there for you too. I'm gonna take care of you. Now listen, before we do that,
don't believe in it, because I still ain't got a sweatshirt yet.
No. Your sweatshirt, Zach, because I haven't gone back to the market. What's the name of the place? I haven't been back to Black Wall Street.
Yeah, I heard today over there.
You say, is it still open?
We'll talk offline about a child.
No,
they say,
let me tell you, I already know. That's why I ain't been back over there. I'm gonna leave it at that. But I do want to. It is the last day of Black History Month, and Darius, I need you to do your job.
I ain't got nothing prepared for you, baby. On this day in 1993. No, I'm joking. Come on, somebody else, give us a Black history fact. I just got off work, Zach. Don't do that.
No, I'll give you Black history. And the Black history fact of this day is that on March the 1st, the one and only Darius Williams was born and raised right here in the state of Georgia. This man is a noted author, a noted educator. And Darius, you have been with us all this time, always bringing laughter, always bringing style, always bringing substance. And brother, you absolutely deserve to be tonight's Black History 365 recipient. So we love you, we appreciate you, and I'm just glad that you're here. Because, it's hard keeping 5 guys on 5 guys, and I'm going to leave it at that. With that being said, tomorrow night is also going to be Miss Ashton's debut on the Canadian Food Network for the Great Chocolate Bake Off.
Oh, awesome.
Showdown.
The Great Chocolate Show. I mean, I wouldn't know what it's called because I haven't been invited to the watch party.
Well, I ain't planned it yet. It's coming soon, so.
Well, okay, and then I want to take it personally. I would like you to have white chocolate at the party for me, because I don't like regular chocolate.
Yeah, I like white chocolate too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it tastes much better.
But yet y'all talking about this woman.
All that junk like Ketanji.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Hypocrites.
I ain't know. I'm for Ketanji. Listen.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
a
for
celebratory black person. I ain't one of them. I don't complain. That's your cousin.
Why don't you make white chocolate cheesecake for us at the watch party?
The white chocolate strawberry, at your birthday party.
Whatever you want, and then I will bring. You know what should I bring? I could bring. I got it. Stop. I got it covered. Listen, this is what we're gonna serve chocolate martinis to go with the chocolate bake off, and I will be in charge of the chocolate. I'm not gonna make them, but I'm gonna handle that. That's my contribution.
You said what?
Is it gonna have Hennessy in it?
Ooh.
Yours will. It's gonna taste nasty as can be, but yours will have Hennessy. Mine's gonna have Godiva liqueur as well as Grey Goose, but yours gonna have,
Oh,
shout out James L. Johnson on the check-in.
I know that's right, James.
James been quiet. We ain't see him in a minute.
Okay, I'm gonna find me a little Chad or a Connor that's gonna listen though. Y'all keep playing. I'm gonna be just like Ketanji. Let's go to Instagram.
Everybody, we'll see you shortly. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you back next week.
Bye, y'all.